Good morning and welcome to the nth iteration of the 15-01 Community Policing Ad Hoc. It is 10:04 a.m. and what we have on the screen in front of us today is the original document with track changes as well as the edited version. I won't call it final because I know these we still have much more work to do. And thank you all for joining us today and being on time. Let's see, Jose, would you like to take it away while I?
Thank you, Jesse. And again, thanks for all the work you've been doing on this. Good morning, Acting Lieutenant Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. I don't know if you caught the tail end of our conversation, but we're really happy to see that we had a meeting of the minds around the idea of, for lack of a better term, an alternative to going through the processes of, the police commission, et cetera, and having a direct interaction between OPD and the community regarding an incident that was a violation of some rule or disrespect, et cetera. But that was something I really was gratified to hear at the end of our meeting our last meeting 2 weeks ago. So it appears, and correct me if I'm wrong, it appears that we've pretty much gone through the entire document and made our edits and had our comments preserved. Thanks again, Jesse. And of course, this is the original document that we're looking at, the original 15-01. I don't know that we had. I certainly didn't, and I apologize. I didn't have a chance to go through all of the material. But what do people think about talking in terms of their perspective around what we've done up to this point of going through the entire document? Obviously, we're going to have to go back from this point on and review everything to make sure that, in fact, we come to an agreement on the draft form that we'll be presenting to the commission at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later. But I wanted to see what people thought about just having a check-in regarding their perspective on what we've done up to this point, and if there's any parts of the document up to this point that we really think we should go back and focus in on and have some additional conversation around. So let me, if that sounds like something that we want to do as a step forward. Go ahead, Jesse.
May I suggest that we maybe go through it section by section to see the changes, because I totally understand that it's a large document. A lot of changes have occurred, so that we can make sure everyone's on the same page going through the edits that have occurred, and perhaps we can do that in an organized way, probably a lot faster than our original run through the document.
So you suggest that we start here with the first one?
Yep.
The first original one?
Or the first section. Here we are. So I have up on the screen the document that was the original document with track changes and the final. I also have the very, very original one, so that we don't have track changes, but I think this maybe shows sort of where the document has evolved over time. And to just go through, I'll just go through it, if it makes sense.
Yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me, Jesse, okay, I'll speak up. I'm a little confused. The one with no track changes is what iteration of the document?
Okay, so I would say that the one with no changes, the one that is all black text, is on the right side of the screen. That is the edited version.
That's the edited.
The most recent version.
That's the one with all the changes accepted.
Correct.
Okay.
And the one on the left shows the original document with the track changes to show what has changed, where pieces are, etc. So this first section was originally,
Jesse?
yes, go ahead.
Is it possible to keep this format, but enlarge the font?
I have, let me try one thing. It's gonna make it a lot smaller, but let me try one thing.
Mhm.
How's that?
Much better.
All right.
Oh, these young whippersnappers taking
I know.
our years into account. Bless your
Yeah.
heart.
Yeah,
That's good.
I took the hit this time, Brenda.
Thank you so much. I was wondering if I was gonna have to speak up on that as well, so thank you.
Also, Mike, if you can go up to your view options, you could increase the size from 100 to 150 for your particular screen. That's what I have.
Oh, wow.
Where? Where?
Yeah, there's a, at the top said view options.
At the
In
very,
In
the
the
very
view,
top of your screen,
at the view,
view options, I have mine at 150%.
I don't see a view option. Standard, is that it? What do you, I see view options. I get standard side by side and speakers.
Yeah. You see
Yeah, thank you,
the,
Jesse. That helps out a lot, even for myself.
Mm. Okay.
Reactions.
I still didn't. Okay.
All right.
thanks, Mariano.
All right. So I couldn't, we originally had the first section as entitled background, then we changed it to vision. However, in a later section, it actually talks about the department's mission, values, and goals. So I thought I would just name the first section community policing, because it generally talks about what community policing is as it means in Oakland. I kept the first line because I thought it was a very good line and it made a lot of sense to have it as the first line. The first paragraph is what it was originally a single paragraph, and I've chopped it up to try to include as much of our edits as possible and make it do so in a way that made sense. It is a strategy through which officers build collaborative, transparent, trusting relationships with the communities they serve through partnerships and problem solving. That is specifically from our edit. I mean, most of this is from our edits, built upon the philosophy of employing a guardian mindset where officers feel like and are seen as part of the community rather than separate from it as they work with communities to holistically address various issues. I thought it important to have that in the very first paragraph to emphasize that particular point.
Jesse, can you put an A after up there at the after it is a strategy?
Oh, yes, I can. Thank you for that.
Alrighty. This sounds good to me.
Just
Any comments on this down through address various issues? If not, let's go on. Go ahead, Jesse.
okay, so the second paragraph talks about the importance of community policing to the department generally. So community policing is the core principle that forms the foundation of the Oakland Police Department's culture. that speaks to the department generally, requires a commitment from all OPD members to positively engage with the community and work smarter in finding creative approaches to traditional and non-traditional problems, require all members to be trained in the history of policing in Oakland, cultural diversity and competency, active listening, effective community engagement, and a commitment to de-escalation strategies. This is specifically making sure that the initial statements make it well known that this applies to the entire department, not just to CROs, which at the moment are relatively limited in number, but we hope to be much larger later on. I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah, this is really just excellent. This is really such a focused aspect of this. So, man, this is great. Any comments? Any changes we want to make to this? If not, let's move on.
Yep. So this is a part where it speaks specifically about what we hope officers are trained in and the importance of community policing and its relationship to the community. Community policing envisions officers that are trained in and engage in restorative justice-based dialogue with community members in a manner that allows for continuous updates and adjustments to the department practices, procedures, and policies. If you remember, I think this was a section that came from Creighton and specifically had this language that we weren't very happy with. Iterative, I think was the phrase. So I just said continuous, which made more sense to my brain. Community policing will recognize the links between U.S. and Oakland history, systemic racism, poverty, and issues of crime and quality of life, and seek to repair the historical harm done by policing. This goes to the duty to repair that Pastor Jackie talked about later on, done by policing in Oakland, as well as mitigating unintended consequences and further harm in department practices, procedures, and policies.
Let's
Any
say
changes?
a grammatical one.
Please, yeah.
For seek, I think should have an S. Community policing will recognize the risks and seeks to repair the historical harm.
Oh, and doors.
Where'd I put it, Andor? Okay, no, okay.
No, please.
So we good with this? If so, let's move on.
And here you can see that this next paragraph is taken from a good chunk of the original paragraph that was the original paragraph, and talks specifically about the role of community policing for the CROs and the community policing program. Envisions proactive problem solving in collaboration with other public service agencies, community-based organizations, and the community to address issues of importance to the community. It is a customer service approach to policing that embodies a true partnership, one in which all stakeholders advise, listen, and learn, and the resultant strategies reflect that input. It is not just a strategy that reduces crime, it improves the overall quality of life in our neighborhoods for all residents. And now this goes directly to the idea that, CROs are not just there to resolve crime issues. It's about life issues that occur in the neighborhoods and making the neighborhoods better. And speaks directly to the roles of the CROs. Yeah.
Sounds great. Any comments? Any changes? If not, let's move on.
I just want to make sure I haven't lost anybody. Okay. All right. So purpose. This is a pretty standard paragraph. It is taken, a lot of it is taken from, well, no, actually not a lot. Sorry. So this is the original paragraph. The purpose of this directive is to set forth Bureau procedures. We took out NSCs, took out foot patrol officers and crime reduction teams since it was moved to VVOC. I don't envision that structure necessarily changing, but if it does, we can figure it out at some later ad hoc. This directive, so this goes to what we, I think a little bit more about what this document needs to have. So set clear expectations for the department to engage community groups and members of the public and develop trusting, lasting relationships. Define the department's role with respect to resolution 79235, also known as Measure Y. Although I think it's Measure Z now, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I need to get that right. Wait, help me out. 79235 and Measure Y and Measure Z, different things or the same thing?
Yeah, Measure Z was the successor to Measure Y. I mean, yeah, Measure Z was followed Measure Y. I don't know that that 79235 is also known as Measure Z. Certainly there's a relationship. But I would just put an and after 79235.
Yeah, Mr. Farmer.
Yeah, if you wanted to reference Measure Z, the resolution number is 85149.
85149. Thank you. Now it's interesting because in the discussions that we've been having, I think that the department members have generally referred to Measure Y or 79235 in defining their roles. I'll include a paragraph to make sure that this.
And there are some real differences in terms of how Measure Y and Measure Z differ in terms of the role of the CRO. And not that we have to go into that, but I just wanted to point that out.
I'll make sure they're both in there just to be clear, and then make sure that we so that the reference is there. Is there a particular name for Measure Z other than Measure Z?
The Safety and Services Oversight, I believe. Is that right, Mr. Farmer?
Yeah, it's Public Safety and Services Violence Prevention Oversight. But you can just say Public Safety and Services Oversight, probably. You can just say Public Safety and Services Oversight. I don't think people really use the violence prevention part that often. Might not recognize it.
Thank you. All right. And a semicolon. I'm not making double edits because I'll just accept all the changes and start something anew. Okay.
Jesse, I would just make sure you eliminate the 7923, the part that says also known as Measure Y.
This part? Oh,
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yes, that's good.
Should I get rid of the Measure Z part too?
No, because it is known as Measure Y, Measure Z, I'm sorry. Mr. Farmer, would you agree?
Yeah, and actually, I agree with that. Technically, I would put instead of what I had you put down, Public Safety and Services Oversight. What's better is to say Public Safety and Services Violence Prevention Act. That's how we referred to it in our city council meeting last year. So
Good.
that's what I would do.
Good.
Great.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Then that actually brings up a question for this next part, which is define the department's role with respect to resolution. Direct the department to support community engagement and neighborhood empowerment objectives laid out by the Oakland Neighborhood Services Division, which is a nod towards the fact that now the NSCs are now in the city of Oakland and the city administrator's office, and whatever guidelines that they may have. It's also kind of a call out to them, like, hey, if you have something, maybe make something so that the department can sort of follow those or get some additional guidance. And resolution 79235, which does specifically lay out those objectives. And that's, are there objectives in 85149?
Mr. Farmer?
Yes, the three main objectives that we referred to in our city council meeting are number one, reduce homicides, robberies, burglaries, and gun-related violence. Two, improve police and fire emergency 911 response times. 3, invest in violence intervention / prevention to interrupt cycle of violence.
Great. So
Interesting.
maybe that should just, Jesse, maybe with this last part should say, just eliminate the and, put a comma after divisions, and just add resolution 85149.
Are there, so those 85149 sounds to be specific to, it sounds like violence prevention and crime reduction. Are there community engagement, neighborhood empowerment objectives as well?
In Measure Z?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that aspect of it just has to do with the CROs and the CRTs doing their problem solving activities, and you know, discussing the crime statistics germane to their beat, like we discussed last week, things like that.
Well, then there is a relationship of community engagement and neighborhood empowerment.
Absolutely.
Okay. So is this sentence okay with everybody? Starting with directed department and ending with resolution 85149? If so, I guess, did you read this, the last one, set forth your expectations?
Yep. Set forth Bureau expectations and responsibilities, added the second resolution, and then this is the original paragraph from the original purpose section.
I think that sounds fine. Is that okay with everybody? If so, let's move on to Roman numeral 3.
I am a fan of the Oxford comma. I apologize.
Oh my.
So I always have excessive commas. So police department mission, vision, and goals. The 3 fundamental components: reduce crime, strengthen community trust and relationships, and achieve organizational excellence. It sounded like this came specifically from OPD's overall, as opposed to the specific mission values, the 3 components of this particular policy. And so I left this alone. And so there is this part about additional goals. And so this goes to specifically some of our edits of what should go into OPD's mission, values, and goals. Is to promote and protect public safety while respecting the dignity and rights of all, including the most vulnerable. Critical to that goal is the department and the community believe that the community's well-being is at the heart of all law enforcement activities. This requires the department to do the following: build and foster mutual trust and cooperation with the community, actively building positive relationships with members of the community on department-wide and individual basis, actively building collaborative partnerships with non-law enforcement agencies, including city departments, community-based organizations, and neighborhood councils, participate in community-led and directed problem solving. Does this require a hyphen? Oh no, this is a comment. Yes.
Yeah.
Conduct train. It does require a hyphen. Okay.
I don't know, you know, some of them do. Community led probably requires a hyphen, kind of like the Oxford comma sort of thing. There are different views on it, but okay.
Yeah,
Other-
I like the hyphen because to me, it makes it much closer to the idea of the SARA process, because that's really what problem solving is. So I like that.
And Jesse, we should do a global, kind of go back and see wherever else we use problem solving to make sure they're consistent.
Got it. Let's see. Let me write that down.
and let me further complicate things. There should probably be a hyphen before directed.
Sure.
Community led, and then we're really basically saying also community directed. Yeah, that'll work.
Got it. Conduct training that is conducted by, it includes the community, hire officers from the community, conduct open and honest communication and transparency among all stakeholders. And then commend and reward those department members that exemplify these principles. Let me
I would
make
say
sure
who. I would say who exemplify.
who exemplify these principles.
I had a comment on the go up to conduct training. I don't recall if later on we had specified that, and this is to me a very important point, the training to be conducted by and obviously include the community, but more so that the actual curriculum be developed by, not just that the training be conducted by the community, but the actual curriculum be developed by and presented by the community. And I think it's important that the community members who would conduct the training not just be given some material that's developed by the police department. I think there are specific topics that are very, very important to be developed by. There's topics and curriculum that should be developed by as well as presented by the community.
And I'm trying to figure out a way to say it. I want to say in conjunction with, include training that is developed in conjunction with members of the community or something like that. Or in conjunction with the community.
But in collaboration with.
In collaboration with, that works. The better word.
Brendan, not to be, I don't know,
It's gonna be a list.
too aggressive, but do you think that the collaboration with OPD and the development of training curriculums would water it down?
No, because the training is going to be done by OPD. So we could go back to conduct trainings that are developed in collaboration with the community. Oh, so you want to do all three, led by the community and includes the community?
Yeah, what I envision is actual trainings of all types, including in the academies, have a significant component that consists of community presentations of curriculum that's developed by the community. Obviously, OPD has their, obviously, they have their expertise and their perspective, but I think all trainings right on up to the community, to the academy, should have these significant components that are, again, developed and presented by the community.
Okay.
So I don't want to see that watered down, frankly.
So should we say developed in collaboration with and presented by?
Certainly, they'll at least developed by and presented by.
I saw Lieutenant Johnson's hand up just a little bit earlier, and then Mariano's hand is up.
Yeah, I'm
think,
pretty sure that, go ahead, Mariano.
No, you go first. Your hand was up first, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we can all work together with this. And I've seen training with Jose that where you come in and you talk with the PSOs. I agree. I highly agree that the community should come in and speak with the academy and have training on this. That's kind of, I think pretty much Jose touched on everything that I was going to say. That's why I lowered my hand.
Okay.
So I understand Jose's position, but I also understand negotiation. So if collaboration is accepted, then, you know, collaboration doesn't really determine degree or amount. So if it's accepted, you know, then we're able to collaborate, community is able to collaborate, you know, as much, you know, as possible. You know, because I'm looking at this as, you know, so the police commission is going to be reviewing this. State council is going to be reviewing it. The police department is obviously going to be reviewing it. So, you know, I want to go in as easy as possible with collaboration. That just opens the door for, you know, as full or, you know, to degrees of participation. But I agree with Jose in his intent of, you know, that this has to be, you know, community led. But I think this is sufficient for now. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? If not, let's go ahead and move on. Jesse?
We took out this portion about structure due to the change in structure. Oh, that page is weird. All right. Section 4, community policing and problem solving.
Hyphen and problem solving or no?
Oh, yeah. Consistency. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is from the original document, right? Effective community policing focuses not only on developing and maintaining relationships with the citizens, businesses, and or community organizations it serves, but understanding that to resolve the issues facing an area, it requires collaborative effort.
I think we don't need the and or, just and.
Yeah. Like I said, original document. Let's see, and let's just be clear, there are going to be more than one issue facing an area, so might as well have that be issues. Places a high value in responses that are preventative in nature, not dependent on the use of the criminal justice system, and that engage other public agencies, the community, and the private sector when their involvement has the potential for significantly contributing to the production of the problem. Problem solving carries a commitment to implementing resources, rigorously evaluating effectiveness, and subsequently reporting the results, priorities, and projects in ways that will benefit the community and the organization, and policing practices in general. I'm going to double check this footnote. This is in the original, so we are working off a good document. Okay, Herman Goldstein, Center for Problem. Okay. All right, so community priorities. Oh, right. We need to decide whether we're going to write out neighborhood councils or not.
What did we agree to get rid of the alphabets and use neighborhood councils?
I think
think
we
that would-
agreed.
I think that would be better so that, because hopefully it's going to be widely read.
I think it mainly makes agree to get rid of most of the abbreviations except for potentially CROs.
Right, right.
Let's see. Okay, community priorities, prioritize. So
Can I
community
ask
priorities. Yeah.
For neighborhood councils, well, typically said by attendees of the neighborhood councils. Okay, then good. All right. Got it.
Prioritize the issues of concern generated by community. While typically set by attendees of the neighborhood councils, priorities can come from a variety of different sources. Neighborhood should be identified through a specific procedure and produced in written form following SMART principles.
And SMART we have defined above.
I'm just double checking right now. I don't know what SMART principles are. Can someone help us out with that?
Yeah, it's specific, measurable, attainable. I think the R is reasonable and then
Replicable.
T is timeline.
Okay. Is it replicable? Is the R, I'm not sure. Reasonable. Oh, T is for timeline. Okay.
T is a timeline, yes.
Okay.
Lieutenant Johnson? Sound right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Uh, I will make a footnote for that. Oh, good Lord, what have I done? All right, I'll figure out how to do that. Okay. However, priority should be applicable to a larger section of the community policing beat rather than just one individual. Such priority should be determined by a representative group of community stakeholders with a focus on diversity. Community policing beat should have 1 to 3 priorities at any given time.
Any comments? If not, let's move on.
CROs, that's the first time we see CROs, isn't it? CROs should take the lead in taking neighborhood council priorities of a more serious nature through the Sarah process. Neighborhood service coordinators should take the lead in taking the neighborhood council. Sorry.
It's okay. You can go back and do a global on that. You can just do a global replace on that later on.
Thank you. In either case, the CRO and NSC should report back to the sponsoring neighborhood council at the completion of each step in the Sarah process in real time.
Can I ask, did we do Sarah? We defined Sarah.
Sarah's next. Yeah. Sarah's coming up.
I'm sorry,
Sarah is coming up.
but what about, no, did we define Sarah? We're referring to Sarah process now. Have we said what the acronym means?
Yes, that's the next section.
No, but we should define it the first time we use it.
Oh, I see. Scanning, analysis, response.
Assessment.
Assessment, thank you. Is assessments last?
That's the last, that's, yes.
Got it.
And then Jesse, we can kind of sort of like the Oxford comma thing, sort of everything's going to be like the Oxford comma today. Sometimes there's no apostrophe after initials unless you are trying to show possession. So CRO should just be a little s with no apostrophe, I think, but we should check that. I think, yeah. So
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, so CROs, and again, that can be another global when you go back, no apostrophe s.
Gotcha. Okay. Sarah projects, I expected the least amount of edits to this one because it's relatively straightforward. Identify specific priorities and problems and to design tailored solutions for those issues. Each CRO is expected to have at least one open Sarah project at any given time. Sarah concept includes evaluation, assessment of the solutions and results to determine the efficacy of the design response. Sarah model includes the following steps. And there is that footnote right here that refers to a 2018 paper. Mr. Farmer?
Yeah, I had a question for Officer Johnson. It was stated in one of our meetings by our liaison to the SSOC that OPD uses scorecards in their weekly shooter reviews to help grade CROs on their violence prevention efforts. And I thought that might be related to Sarah projects somehow. I just wanted to know whether that's accurate and if that's something that we can use as a tool to help NCPCs or people in the community use to grade them on their violence prevention efforts.
Well, I believe that scorecard is for all units. It's not just the CROs. CROs very seldom go to the shooting review or have any actual targets to have the scorecard. Now, some of our projects do touch on that, but that's about it. Could you use that? You probably could.
Okay. And then I just one other question for you, since it actually goes back to the training portion. But it was also stated that that technically there is some sort of CRO training that's happening that's done either quarterly or biannually, in that the CRTs who are now under the VSOC command all receive some sort of training concurrently. But I know that other people are under the impression that there hasn't been training developed yet. But can you tell me which is accurate? Like, is there training done quarterly or biannually, and for the CRTs concurrently, or is there not training?
Well, there is training that we do quarterly. When Deputy Chief Bolton was the captain, he was actually over the training. Now I believe it's going to probably fall under Deputy Chief. He's acting Deputy Chief Beer now. As far as the CRTs, they have their training that they do within the BCOC, and I believe they do theirs more on a every 2 months, or every 2 weeks. They actually do a training with the BCOC and ceasefire.
Okay, and that's all just been developed in-house among OPD members, not in collaboration with the community. Is that right?
Well, some of the CRO trainings, so when we were doing the CRO trainings, I believe Jose Dorado was actually in on that. Jose, and at the time it was Deputy Chief Joshi, put on something for the community. And I believe that we're gonna have a training coming up soon, but I'm not sure yet. So I will check with Captain Febble, because he'll probably be over the training now.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I just put up on the screen something that I found in doing some of my own research when I was looking up things, which was that in some of the previous Measure Y, Measure Z reports, there were some slides and some presentations on what training went into. Well, in 2011, they were called PSOs, now CROs. And it's up on the screen right now, just so that I don't know if that's the same or different, but there is some sort of CRO or PSO curriculum from what I can tell. And as Lieutenant Johnson just confirmed. Let's see. We'll put that down. All right, so Sarah projects. Let's see. Scanning. Identifying recurring problems of concern to the public and the police. I'm gonna make this one a little bigger because this is going to be a longer section. Identifying consequence, prioritizing these problems, developing broad goals, confirming that the problems exist, determining how frequently the problem occurs, selecting problems for closer examinations. I think this comes directly from the document, from the paper analysis. Identifying, understanding events and conditions that precede and accompany the problem, identifying relevant data, researching what is known, taking inventory, narrowing the scope, identifying a variety of resources within and without. That's probably outside. Is without?
Yeah.
Without. If
Yeah,
it's a word,
that's better.
if it's a word, I have no. I'm happy to keep it in if it's a word. I have no idea if it is. Just sounds a little odd. Within and outside Oakland, that may be of assistance in developing a deeper understanding of the problem.
Jesse, excuse me, I put after outside,
Maybe
within and
outside
outside of Oakland.
Yeah, outside of Oakland. And developing a working hypothesis about why the problem is occurring. Response, brainstorming for new interventions, searching for what other Oakland Neighborhood Council beats in other communities. Choosing among the alternative interventions, outlining response plan, identifying responsible parties, and stating the specific objectives for the response plan and carrying out the planned activities. Assessment is determining whether the plan was implemented, a process evaluation, collecting pre and post response qualitative data and quantitative data, determining whether broad goals and specific objectives were obtained, identifying any new strategies, and conducting ongoing assessment to ensure continued effectiveness. And then review upon completion of responding to a priority, including the closure of a Sarah project that involves CRO, should discuss with the relevant neighborhood council. Let's see. Anything about the Sarah project section?
Just an exciting idea, concept to see actually this implemented on a regular basis. And going up to number 3, the assessment, I mean, the response, searching for what other neighborhood council meetings in other communities with similar problems have done. This is what's important about having some sort of access to the Saranet database, so we can see what other neighborhood councils have done to deal with similar problems. Seeing this done is just would just be just so useful, so and so effective, I think.
Okay. Moving on, we have taken out the neighborhood service coordinator section because they are no longer within OPD. It's actually a pretty big chunk. Let's see. We have, now we're at the CRO section. Yeah, I guess I don't really need that. Okay, so this of course reiterates, this first paragraph reiterates that every police officer in OPD is a community policing officer, but there are specific roles and responsibilities and specialized training for community resource officers. So this is the responsibility of all department members to positively engage members of the community, to positively engage the community. I don't like the double members, but I'll fix that later. The community with the goal of fostering productive relationships and a collaborative effort to promote safe communities in line with the principles outlined above. This responsibility includes supporting the policy directives of the City of Oakland. However, not every sworn police officer is a community resource officer. Community resource officers have specialized training and experience that permits them to focus problem-solving activities on community identified priorities or priorities that affect the overall safety and well-being of the community in a given area. It's fine. Okay. Qualifications. This is, we talked a lot about this, at least 3 years of law enforcement experience and a proven track record of exceptional service, which must be determined by community input. Additionally, applicants must have demonstrable community engagement skills and project management skills. And this is that section that turns the CRO position into an order of merit list position, allowing the department to test and to select, as opposed to just having going off of whoever signs up.
Sounds good. Any comments? If not, let's move on.
General roles.
Wait, I'm sorry. I thought that somewhere in here we had determined amount of time you can serve as a CRO. Didn't we talk about that?
We did. That comes a little bit later.
Oh, okay.
And, yeah, it's in there. Yeah. It's we're talking about the, hopefully we want you to spend X amount of time and then the max amount of time, right? Yeah. General roles. Let's take out that apostrophe. Are responsible for the coordination of problem-solving activities in specific geographic areas, including, and this is that list that we worked on. Yeah. This is the list that we worked on for, I'm going to refer back to the other one because it's a little cleaner to look at. Sorry. Here we go. General roles. Community resource officers are responsible for the coordination of problem-solving activities. Yep. Initiating and completing SARE projects. establishing and building relationships, being a resource for community members on preventative measures, regularly communicating updates about the status of NCP priorities to the chair of the assigned neighborhood council, attending all neighborhood council regular meetings and providing routine updates, encouraging active participation of OPD personnel in neighborhood council and other community groups, serving as liaisons with city departments, coordinating enforcement efforts or responses to safety issues with city and law enforcement personnel or other public safety departments or agencies, informing, answering, and alleviating any affected neighborhood concerns about the specific enforcement efforts to the extent possible, providing foot and bicycle patrols as needed, and answering calls for service in their assigned beats if needed, and documenting and reporting on the following: neighborhood council priorities, community concerns, area command staff priorities, crime issues, blight concerns, SARA projects, crime statistics, social, racial, ethnic, and language concerns that have a role and factor in CRO member activities, and any other information that is either requested by the community or relevant to a neighborhood council priority or community concern. In addition,
Jesse, excuse me, on H, what's the idea behind CRO member activities? What member? I don't understand why member is there.
oh, the word member,
Yes.
or I don't know why the word member is there. It may just be to, okay, CRO is probably fine. Mr. Farmer.
Yeah, I would just eliminate it. Just have CRO activities.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Officer Johnson if the CROs also have access to DVP's city span data, which tracks like their violence prevention efforts and activities in different neighborhoods. I know that the last meeting we discussed also, you know, the collaboration that officers do with DVP and violence interrupters and things like that in terms of intimate setting meetings. And I think this might be helpful. The city span information would be helpful to NCPCs to hear about violence prevention efforts done in their communities if they have access to the data. So I'm just wondering, do they have access to that data?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they actually have access to that data, but we normally go through the NSCs and they have that, they normally have that data. So I'd have to check to make sure, but that would be good data to have.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Can you get back to us on that, Acting Lieutenant? Whether they have access to that data?
Yes, and what was the name of it? So I'm gonna make a phone call right now.
City span.
City span? Okay.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's see. Sorry to keep jumping back and forth, but now we can go back to the last paragraph here. In addition to the crime reduction activities, to the above crime reduction activities, I'm going to take out crime reduction because there are some things that are not quite crime reduction. CROs may answer calls for service outside of their assigned beat and assist as first responders to crowd management events in their assigned beat. CROs may also work with other law enforcement members in providing violence or other serious crime suppression outside of their assigned beat. However, due to the importance of the CRO program in fostering relationships with the community, drawing CROs from their assigned duties and beats is disfavored and should only be done as a last resort.
Any comments?
Mm-mm.
Not, let's move on.
Okay. Specific responsibilities. CROs act as coordinators and liaisons for projects and priorities. They're assigned, yep. Absent other urgent and specific department needs, the department is committed to keeping continuity of CROs assigned to a specific beat. As you can tell, this is the original language that's in there. No. Therefore, the department will establish the criteria for reassigning CROs outside their designated beats. Such reassignments shall be fully documented as to length and reason for reassignment and approved by the area commander. Said documentation and approval shall be reported to the neighborhood council of the CROs. Apostrophe is correct. Assigned B. Assigned. Yes. Okay. Okay. The CROs utilize the SARA process to solve problems. This process is documented by CROs in the community project database, Saranet. CROs are also expected to build community support for OPD through positive customer service, be visible to and engage with the community, identify violent crime hotspots on their community policing beat, assist neighborhood councils in establishing appropriate priorities and open SARA projects based on these neighborhood council priorities, research and identify 3 locations generating the highest calls for service, their community policing beat, and as appropriate open projects aimed at reducing these calls for service, identify properties with neighborhood problems, calls for service, crime, blight, and nuisance, and institute projects to address these problems, communicate important information to patrol officers, and coordinate the response activities, check email and voicemails daily. Yeah, okay. Sorry, it just looked like a list that didn't have a lot of changes, and I remember a lot of discussion about it. Know and identify formal and informal community leaders, block leaders, neighborhood watch block captains, school principals, community center staff, religious leaders, businesses, merchant associations, etc., and coordinate with other city council, city, county, and state agencies to resolve problems. These include but are not limited to OFD, OCA, nuisance abatement, Alameda County DA's office, Public Works, Department of Transportation, Building Services, Oakland Housing Authority, OUSD, and other youth agencies. I'm going to take out as required.
Yes.
Such as but not limited to the All City Youth Council. That's probably a hyphen. Oakland City Department of Violence Prevention, Oakland Department of Race and Equity, macro. I will define this. Parks and Recreation Departments. That is a semicolon. Coordinate with NSCs and community leaders to utilize community-based organizations to resolve problems, create, gather, or provide updates, results, and events regarding projects or priorities. This is going to start looking familiar. This was the thing that we talked about most recently for public dissemination, including but not limited to posting to social media platforms. When being transferred to a new assignment, outgoing CRO shall fully update, orient, and educate the incoming CRO to beat priorities and issues past and present, as well as introduce them to beat stakeholders. There's a better way to make that into an active voice. I'll fix this.
And in 13, the CROs, outgoing CROs, plural, shall fully update, orient, and educate the incoming CROs, plural. So there should be an S on that.
And report on the progress of neighborhood council priorities by presenting brief oral reports on the progress of each neighborhood council priority at neighborhood council meetings to the extent possible, and submitting written reports to the sponsoring neighborhood council immediately upon completion of each step in the SARA process to the extent possible. There should be a period here somewhere. These reports may be submitted to the neighborhood council chair or vice chair, and a copy provided to the associated NSC to include in the neighborhood council's next meeting. And maintaining at least one project centered on a neighborhood council priority per assigned beat.
Any comments on that? That's a lot, but man, that's the meat of what the CROs should be focused on a daily basis. This will be great. No comments. Let's move on.
Use and auditing of the Saranet database. CROs shall update the Saranet database on the status of their project responses regularly at minimum once per week. CRO should maintain contact with other personnel to include updates of coordinated responses to the projects in the database. The Saranet database, sorry, losing my ability to talk, will be reviewed or audited by the area commander, no less than on a monthly basis to ensure that projects are properly documented, and the department will make available to the public information on all projects in the Sarah database in properly redacted form. Lieutenant Johnson.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is there a reason that we changed it from once per week to, from a month to a week?
This was, so when we got this original document, these were edits that were made, so I don't think this is something we specifically discussed.
Are you talking about the first paragraph?
Yes,
Yeah, I think that may have been one of my suggestions, given that if the CRO is doing his or her job, I think they would be regularly doing the updates and work on their projects, their SARE projects, and be able to update the database at a minimum once per week. If in fact, I mean, that's just once a week, and they should be working on their project, I would think, on a daily basis, because certainly there's a lot to be done, especially if they have more than one project or one priority.
Yeah, and that's one reason why we may not need, maybe we should give the officers a break, maybe bi-weekly, maybe every 2 weeks or something, particularly if they do have more than one project.
Yeah, and that's the
I
thing.
could compromise it bi-weekly.
I'm sorry.
I said I could compromise it bi-weekly.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that we have officers that are working on these projects, and they have multiple projects as well as other things that pop up, issues, and have to go out, go tow a car. We might get on a actual incident, and they're not able to update these things bi-weekly or weekly. That's why we had it as a month, and that's each month. As a supervisor, I go through and I make sure that they have updated Sarah the way it needs to be updated. So I guess if you don't want to do it monthly, because they have 1 month to actually update the NCs on what they've done. So within Sarah, nobody else is seeing that besides the supervisors in OPD right now. So I think a month is actually giving them a break, and so they can actually sit down and actually update this. Some of them do it weekly, but some of them aren't able to do it weekly because of operations that we have going on, other projects. We're helping other CROs with their projects. So that's why I say monthly would probably be a good thing.
let me ask from a practical reality perspective. Let's say I'm going to ask you in 2 different scenarios. So right now, recognizing that we don't have as many CROs as we have previously had, how often are CROs able to work on a project such that there's actually an update to put into the Saranet database, and how many Sarah projects do they have going at a time?
So right now, they're not working on a lot of the big projects because of how we are, that we have lower numbers of CROs. So they're working together and just trying to knock out as much much of the issues that we're having, towing the vehicles. If there's a blight, they're helping out with the homeless encampments and trying to move people along. Also trying to get people to move from their motorhome. We have a project that they're working on right now. They have a project that they're working on right now that is on, I believe, 68th and Foothill, where they've gone through, they've towed a bunch of cars. They've got the homeless encampment moved. They've worked with the homeless encampment team and cleaning up that block. So if you're familiar with it, is right there at the old Ace Hardware on Foothill, that empty lot there. So if you go by there now, it's pretty much clean. It's a little harder to actually work on Sarah, long-term Sarah projects with only having the amount of CROs that we have right now.
And then the the next question is, fully staffed CRO program, right? But at the height of its program, how many projects, how often were they able to work on it? The
Well,
Sarah
normally-
projects.
Yeah, normally they have 3 Sarah projects for each NC. So some beats have 2 NCs, some of them have 3. So you say like beat 31. Beat 31 has they have an X, a Y, and a Z. So that CRO is pretty much, hunkered down with a bunch of actual projects. So it makes it a little harder than, let's say, like a beat 29X, where they only have just the one NC where they have 3 projects that they're working on,
So I guess the question is, with the wide variance in Sarah project numbers, does that give CROs enough to do where they can update the database on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, like, or right? So if someone has 9 projects, how much updating can they do of the database realistically?
Yeah. And here's the other thing. We like to see our officers on the street assisting. So as you said, I believe in is a couple of paragraphs ago, you want them actually out there, answering calls for service on their beat if possible. So these are all things that we're doing, because we don't want to see our calls, 100, 150 calls for service standing. So we do go out and we actually help out. So to come back into the office and update that Sarah, or even to do it in our car, I think a month where we can actually have an administration day where we sit down at the desk and we update this, we update the projects, we update the NCs on what's going on, would be a greater, would actually help us out as far as the CROs go. And then
And
if they can't update it bi-weekly, then they will. Some of them go in there each week and they update as they go to the project and they see something, or they respond to something on that project. But they're not always on that project, okay? Because they have several projects as well as their other duties as police officers. So it might be a shooting. They end up going to the actual shooting and then they're working on that. If they go to a robbery to help out, to assist, if they get into a car pursuit, or if we have a project that's working where we have an operation. So there's many facets to being a CRO, because we're helping out with a lot of things. We're helping out with the VOC. We're actually helping out with ceasefire on some projects because they need arrest teams. So there's many facets that a lot of people don't see that we actually do.
I had a couple of comments. One is that what we want, what I would suggest that we be moving away from, and provide the language in our policy with that vision in mind, and that is that the CRO should be doing the kinds of things that the acting lieutenant just talked about, only as needed, as a last resort, as we talked about previously. They should be, the CROs, that is, they should be focused on the duties and responsibilities that we're laying out here. And that certainly includes, and it's a major part of what I see that they should be doing, and that is doing the projects. Now, talking about the beats that have more than one, I'm sorry, the councils that exist in one beat, or I should say that one neighborhood council that has one CRO, that's 13 X, Y, and Z, and they're up in the hills. And I really doubt if we're ever going to see all 3 of those beats have 3 projects apiece, given that they're up in the hills. So I don't see that there's ever going to be a case where that CRO, that assigned CRO, is going to have 9 projects that they're going to have to, on a weekly or biweekly or monthly basis, have to comment on or update. So I would compromise at a biweekly, but I want to see that we in fact mandate that the CROs stay on top of their projects and update the status of their projects on a regular basis. And I think monthly is too far of a too long of a time. I would prefer weekly, but I'll compromise at biweekly. I think that should be their main emphasis. And not only that, but I think we have to take into account that if the report hasn't come out already, it will come out soon, that a third to the half of the responses through dispatch of OPD are to non-criminal and non-violent incidents. That is, that there should be a real shift in the assignment of police officers, more so to their assigned duties. That is preventing and dealing with violence. And that certainly includes the CROs being more focused on their duties, as we've outlined, given the fact that there should be the development of community resources like macro to deal with nonviolent and non-criminal activities, rather than OPD going out to these calls. So that's a shift, I think, once the report that comes out, that will be coming out very shortly, again, if it hasn't already been out, that we'll see. And that will provide the opportunity for CROs to focus much more on the duties and responsibilities that we see now, or we have outlined here. So again, I would say if we don't want to make it so strict as a week, I would compromise it bi-weekly, but a month is too much time to be gone past before they update the status on their project. We should go with the bi-weekly, I would suggest.
Mr. Farmer?
Yeah, no, Commissioner Shea, I just wanted to give you more information so they can accurately answer your question about the percentage of time CROs spend on crime reduction activities, because 3 other commissioners in the SSOC actually put together an efficacy of Measure Z presentation. And what they came up with was that CROs spend no more than 20% of their time on actual crime reduction activities. So just putting that out there for you and the rest of the people in the group.
Is that crime reduction generally or Sarah projects?
Just in generally, Sarah and crime reduction activities. Yeah.
This is for
Commissioner Harbin Forte?
Oh, thank you.
I have a
Thank you so
couple
much.
things. Look, I guess we've compromised on the bi-weekly, which is fine. I was gonna say, let's leave it a month, but I think the bi-weekly will be fine. The other thing I had was on Saranet, let us be consistent. Sometimes we just say Sarah. Sometimes it's just say the Sarah database. Other times we say Saranet database.
Peleando con terrorismo desde
So
1400.
we should be consistent with that. And then the other thing, I just wanted to Acting Lieutenant Johnson, on those towing campaigns and projects, please make sure that your officers have issued appropriate citations before cars are being towed. There seems to be a problem with citations not being issued and cars being towed, which is obviously an illegal tow.
So are we good with this language?
So here's an alternative suggestion, just as a thought. We could have the shall with every 2 weeks, or we could have a should with every week as a directive.
I would suggest we go with a positive shall, at least every 2 weeks. That makes it clear.
And one of the other things, I'm hoping that will work too, because I don't want to, would not want us to make the job of CRO so onerous that good people will decide not to join. They may say that's just too much work. Got to do these trainings, got to go to all these meetings. Gotta sit down and we gotta update the Saranet database. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, I'm good with 2 weeks from now, but we might, after we get more community input and everything, it may be that we end up with going back to a month. But I think 2 weeks is good now.
Just sometimes think about what I can get done in 2 weeks, and sometimes it's not much.
Yeah. And we'll do a global change for Saranet database or Sarah database.
Can I just ask a quick question? Because that does make more sense to me, because the NCPC meetings are done monthly, and that's when they're getting the information, right? So I'm just unclear on why it needs to be more frequently than a month if the NCPCs aren't getting the information more often than a month. Do the NCPCs have access to the Saranet database where they can see it? Yeah, so I'm just unclear on why it would need to be, what's the value in having it more frequently than a month if the meetings aren't done more than monthly?
My sense of where Mr. Dorado's coming from is essentially that requiring CROs to update the Saranet database will direct them or incentivize them or implicitly force them to work on the project so that there's something to update the Saranet database with. Right, that's sort of my sense of where Mr. Dorado's coming from. It's just so that they do have focus on their Sarah projects. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's
No,
sort of the sense I'm getting.
that's exactly right. I don't want them to be doing an update just before the NC meeting. I want them to have this as being a major focus of what their job is, because I think that's exactly what it should be. And so this, the shall every 2 weeks, I think, as you say, forces them to do this status update. And again, I think sharpens their focus on what I think is a major part of what they do.
It has the psychological effect of saying, I don't want to be the person who says I have nothing to update with in 2 weeks, I guess.
Okay, then that does make more sense then. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
Let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna take a look at this particular section about the area commander, because perhaps this should be a sergeant or a lieutenant instead, right? As opposed to an area commander.
Yeah, I agree.
But I'll take a look at that, and then the area commander potentially annual.
What do you think, Lieutenant Johnson, acting lieutenant, acting LT, what do you think?
I'm sorry, could you repeat it? Somebody was talking to me.
Yeah, of course. So it sounds like you are reviewing the Saranet database for the updates that your CROs are doing approximately monthly. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Okay, so we currently have a paragraph that says the area commander should be doing it monthly, but it sounds like it makes more sense to have a superior CRO officer doing so. That's redundant.
As a sergeant, I normally do it once a month, and I do an audit on it. That way I can make sure that they're updating all their projects, that they're doing everything that they need to do on their projects, as well as going out with them sometimes on projects and assisting them and just making sure that they're updated. So once I go to the NC meetings, I listen to what the actual projects are, and I keep them updated on it. And sometimes we actually add our own projects in from emails that we get from citizens, or things that we actually see. So sometimes we have those 3 projects that are from the NCs, but then it might be something that we add in because incidents that have happened.
Is that, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so does that need to be an area commander who's doing that? That's what we were looking at. We're saying it should be reviewed or audited by the area commander. Does it need to be an area commander or can it be a lower rank?
It could be a lower rank.
Is it primarily the sergeants doing it?
Yes, it should be the sergeant that actually goes over there because he's actually running that actual, I call it a squad of CROs. So he should be going in by every month and actually looking at what the projects are and how they're updating and making sure that the projects are viable.
So what will our language be? The Saranet database will be reviewed or audited by the CRO sergeants, no less than on a monthly basis. Okay.
All right. Mariano?
Just in terms of time, it's 11:24. I have some sort of procedural questions. I don't know if we want to get into that before time's up or we want to continue on the document.
I don't think we're going to finish today
Okay.
of this review, so it makes sense to do that. Yeah, thank you for bringing it up.
All right. So I worked a little bit towards the tail end on the use of force ad hoc policy, but I'm not quite sure what the procedure is once we get our document completed, where it goes. You know, does it go to the police department? Do they have to review it? You know, if maybe either today or maybe through email, if one of the commissioners can sort of give us a step-by-step on what happens, you know, because we need to kind of, you know, as we review this and complete it, we need to make sure that it is as sharp as possible. The second question was, where I know that throughout our meetings, we had some very robust and very, I thought were really good conversations. Where are those conversations documented? So those are my two questions. Thank you.
I think in terms of process, we kind of have a decision to make whether we want to, because what we could do is run it by Lieutenant Turner, who is the person who generally writes and goes over policies, and have it go through his sort of workup and see if anything he'll say. Usually he just texts with the department's lawyers, I think. And then after that, we submit it to the commission for approval or public hearings, whatever it might be. Thoughts?
And then does it ultimately go to the city council?
Es el chiquito. El chaser.
That I have to get back to you on. I will double check that procedure. And then as to your second point, so we still have the original document that we were working off of, and that's a link to your email. That's where a lot of the discussion was captured. And of course, each of these meetings is recorded. There is a lot of discussion. I don't think I just took down all of it, but certainly the import of the group discussion in the working document that we have, that's still in the Google document that's linked in the emails that I've been sending.
Yeah. And Jesse, have we been putting these recordings on our website?
Yes.
On our landing page.
Yes.
So Mario, all of the recordings of all of the meetings then can be accessed from
Yes.
our webpage.
Thank you. I totally forgot about that. Thank you.
Yeah. I think there's only one meeting that we didn't record, but everything else is recorded. Anybody who wants to go back and look at it, they can enjoy those long meetings, listen to those long recordings.
I want to be conscious of time. This seems to be a good stopping point. And so we will take this up in 2 weeks. I will get these edits in. We'll continue through this pass through, and then hopefully have one final pass through in the same meeting or another one, and then talk about next steps. And I'll see if I can clarify the procedures going forward.
Mhm.
So Jesse, we're leaving off here at the department will make available, that last sentence.
Yep.
That's our leave off point. So we'll
Yep.
pick it up in 2 weeks right there.
Yeah. And since we've been doing public meetings all along on this, I don't think we need to try to have any kind of public forum or anything because these have been public all along.
Yeah, I agree.
So, okay, good.
Commissioner Harmon Forte, I think we'll get beat up at the commission meetings by public comment. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. I mean, Mariana, what else is new, right?
So
No matter what we do, it's always wrong in somebody's eyes.
what I may do is I may have when we have a draft form or close to a draft final form, I'll ask that it be posted, make an announcement at our ad hoc updates, ask for people to comment or contribute in some way. And then that can be the sort of, hey, this is coming. Say what you're going to.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea to give people a tip off, the community a tip off that we're at the point of actually putting together our final product, our final draft that will go to the full commission. So I think that's a good idea. But yeah, no good deed goes unpunished. So yeah, there'll be comments, but that's okay. I think our whatever we come out with, and we've got most of it here, will be something we can all be proud of.
I think so too. Make sure we don't set it on a date where there might be something else going on in the community. We're gonna do Saturdays, or we might just do a public, if we're gonna do like a public forum, set it on a meeting night, a regular meeting night like we did before, so. But anyway, maybe it's a Saturday, we'll see. Okay, then, those are things that we can talk about.
Okay, well, 11:30. Thank you all for spending your Saturdays with us. Very much appreciate your willingness to go through the document again and constant going over and over again. We're going to get it right. We're getting there. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks,
That's all.
Omar,
Good
Mr.
afternoon,
Farmer.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Mariano. Thank you, Lieutenant Johnson. Appreciate your time.
Bye, Mike.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, Lieutenant Johnson. Thank you.